Not since Team Edward or Team Jacob has the internet made a big deal over a fictitious fight.
It was the monster mash you waited almost 2 decades for.
And the results?
It was
Not
okay.
really.
It's Freddy versus Jason on Scarifyer.
Scream for your life! To a new world of gods and monsters.
Warn your friends. Warn everyone.
Welcome to my nightmare.
We're not safe awake or asleep.
Why won't you die? Freddy versus Jason.
Place your bets.
Oh, yes, Psycho Nation. It's showtime. I am the Ace.
I'm the Gov.
And I'm Quinn.
And you are in the house that Psycho's built. And today we are talking Freddy vs. Jason. But before we get into that, so one of you maniacs asked us a question on social media, so we thought it would be a fun time to give you a little shout out and answer right on the show. So Quinn, what do we got?
All right, guys, we got a question from Scott Jahard. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. His question that he reached out to us is it wrong to only like horror movies that are rated R or NC-17? I have seen horror movie commercials when they said it was rated PG-13. What are your thoughts? Guys, do you want to dive in on this? Your opinions?
Well, clearly there's absolutely nothing wrong with liking movies that are just rated R or NC-17. But, you know, there's still a place for the PG-13 horror movies. Clearly when a studio decides to make one of these movies PG-13, they're kind of looking for the buck. You know, they're trying to, get that very specific teenage crowd. You know, some of them are pretty good. Some of them aren't so good, you know, as goes with any horror movie or any movie for that fact.
Exactly, and that just goes back to personal taste, preference, what you're looking for. PG-13 movies tend to rely on more jump scares and psychological horror or thriller because they can't have really that gore factor, if you will. So there's definitely a different route that they take, but no, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
The key word in the movie business is just that, business. So if you want to get the widest demographic, if you want to reach the widest audience, you're going to go after the age group that is more accessible to spending money on a movie ticket. And for the longest time, that was the young adult demographic that ranges like, I want to say around like 12 to 16. Those were the ones that they wanted to go to the theaters in droves. So the horror genre really harnessed itself to do more PG-13 things. The problem with that is you do kind of abandon your core audience. The people who do want to go see a balls-to-the-wall, hard R horror film, especially if it's a slasher film, like what you said, Quinn. Usually they go more psychological because they can only really give you jump scares. They can't give you gore. They can't give you anything too vicious. Or they just clean it up in other ways. No swearing, no innuendos, no overly sexual scenes. So it does kind of become watered down. I can see why people have a problem with it. I don't think you should restrict yourself to only going to R-rated or NC-17 movies because you are going to miss out on some really good films. However, in terms of the genre, I am happier to see that we've really broken away from the PG-13 stigma. For the longest time, that was the only thing that was getting released. So at least we're seeing the change, but I wouldn't stop yourself.
Awesome.
It basically comes down to, personal preference, too. I mean, ratings don't mean dick. My favorite horror movies are the classic monsters, and they weren't even rated.
It's very true.
Right.
So, thanks for the question, and we encourage all of you out there to like, comment, share, and you, too, will get a shout-out right here on the show, and we will answer your question. Keep them coming.
Good evening, my victims. It is I, Malvolia, the Queen of Screams, and you're listening to Scarifyer.
Let's get down to business. Today's show, Freddy vs. Jason. Gov, spotlight's on you, man.
Well, what's one of our movies that we like to talk about without a wonderful backstory? And the thing about Freddy vs. Jason is it is the equivalent to the term production hell. So I'm going to briefly summarize it up right now with this backstory.
No pun intended.
Influenced by fan desire for a crossover film with a fight between Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees, New Line and Paramount tried to make Freddy vs. Jason back in 1987 but could not agree on a story. When Friday the 13th Part 8 Jason Takes Manhattan failed at the box office, Sean Cunningham wanted to reacquire the rights to Friday the 13th and began working with New Line Cinema. Negotiations on the project collapsed after Friday the 13th Part 8, and in 1989, the rights to Jason were sold, finally, to New Line Cinema. After being in production hell for the better part of 10 years with uncrackable storylines by dozens of writers, Freddy vs. Jason was finally released on August 15th, 2003, slashing the box office, making $117.6 million on a $30 million budget.
So it was a success. It was
Financially, yes.
It was worth the wait.
Was it worth the wait, though?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about today.
Exactly. One thing is very true is this production is a mess. It's been written about and talked about for years. A lot of the filmmakers in question, the writers and people involved with it, are still in shock over the turmoil they went through trying to put this movie on the screen.
It was definitely an odyssey, and we're going to get into some of that today. I am actually going to give a free plug out to the author Dustin McNeil, Clash of Titans, The Road to Freddy vs. Jason, and we're going to reference this book quite a bit during this conversation because he did a phenomenal job breaking down every script that went into production, why it didn't go into production. He's got interviews from the writers and people involved. He's got interviews with Kane Hodder, Robert Englund, everybody. And it's really quite the story. I suggest everybody get on Amazon and pick it up.
Good read.
So where do we want to start, guys?
Well, first of all, I want to ask you guys a couple of questions. I'll start with Quinn. Team Freddy or Team Jason? I think we should get this out in the open.
Jesus. As far as like this movie is concerned, or like in general?
No, in general.
In general?
Growing up with the franchises.
Freddy.
Freddy?
Yeah.
Ace?
Oh, Freddy 100%.
And it's Team Freddy across the board. This is going to be a very biased episode.
Well, thankfully, the movie we got is, I've always said, essentially a Nightmare on Elm Street sequel with Jason in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Special appearance by.
No. I argue that. But you can also look at it this way. It's better that we got a Nightmare on Elm Street movie out of this, I guess, in tone versus a Friday movie, because we just had the previous year Jason X, and we all know how that went.
So you're saying that Freddy vs. Jason was like an apology for Jason X?
I think it was apology from both movies. A New Line was not doing well with Jason.
That's one horrible apology.
Wait, Freddy vs. Jason's a horrible apology?
No, I'm saying it could have been a lot better. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Oh.
All right, we'll get to that.
We're about to go rounds. I'm excited.
Well, the thing you got to understand is no one could agree what to do with this movie, and it took them
Exactly.
almost 20 years to get this thing made.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's the thing. It was a gigantic tug of war game. So it did come out pretty good. I will say that. It came out pretty good. The problem was you can tell where there was some a little bit of this, a little bit of that kind of thrown together. And it's not awful. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm more saying is if they had stuck to a solid idea and made it more fluid, I think it would have been a little bit better.
So what were some of those solid ideas they tried to give us?
Oh, so you want to get right into it? Let's. Well,
Can't make an omelet without breaking some
here's the
eggs.
thing. There were 10 scripts.
Beat me by a second with that.
10 scripts that went into actual production. Hundreds were viewed. And for whatever reason, they got halted, they got rejected. The final scripts got rejected, or Sean Cunningham wouldn't give his approval, or New Line wouldn't give their approval. It was just a mess. So we'll start off with the very first official draft that went into production, and we all know that Ace is horrible with names, so if I pronounce any of these names wrong, please forgive me. So we'll start with the Abernathy draft. And the summary of that is a psycho cult kidnaps a girl to marry Freddy so he can be reborn and take over the world. The girl's sister and her friends team up with an ex-occultist to resurrect Jason in hopes that he will defeat Freddy and the cult.
So cult tries to marry somebody so that child can be reborn into the world. You know, I loved Ghostbusters 2 as much as the next guy.
It's Vigo! You're like the buzzing of flies to him.
But for a Freddy
It certainly
versus
would have been
Jason
more
film,
bloody.
Well, let me. Where does Jason fit into any of that?
Well,
I didn't hear you mention.
No, he literally just said because they're going to try to get Jason to defeat Freddy.
So, reading through this book, it's clear that they didn't know how to use both characters to their advantage.
Exactly.
It was either Jason, like they almost felt like they had to make one of them a hero.
Yeah.
You couldn't make Freddy a hero, so it always ended up being Jason. Or the character wasn't even in it. It was sort of some sort of hallucination of the character. So, well, I mean, we're going to got a lot to talk about because I haven't even touched the section of how they changed the origin stories.
What?
You're going to appreciate that. Let me get through some more of these summaries.
I can't wait.
The next summary, this is the Braga and Moore treatment. Jason is real. Is put on trial for his crimes. A lifelong insomniac, he is given anesthesia for an emergency surgery after being shot during his trial. This reunites him with a monster from his past, Freddy, who uses him as a doorway into reality. Thoughts?
Okay. So not only is Jason real, and the amount of problems that Jason has, being deformed mongoloid, we're going to add insomnia to it too. Poor guy. And didn't we already have a real Freddy? And what, we're just flipping that?
Basically.
With New Nightmare?
Or we're adding a real Jason to the New Nightmare.
I was about to say, so that plays more like a sequel to New Nightmare.
You know what the problem is? I feel like both characters are very good in their own right, and they're very strong, powerful characters, especially in their respective franchises. I think that's one of the problems that there was trying to make this movie happen, because how do you make both of them work in one sitting?
It shouldn't be this hard,
Well,
you would think.
apparently.
Yeah.
Ready for the third treatment?
Oh, God.
All right, this is the Briggs draft.
I'm scared.
All right, here we go. Survivors from the previous sequels team up with the FBI
Oh, no.
Yeah.
to stop an evil prophecy involving Freddy and Jason on New Year's Eve, 1999.
Wait, you said prophecy? Mm-hmm. God damn it.
It gets better. The Tyrants are revealed to be pawns of Thanos.
Oh, snap.
What? What?
Okay.
Now,
well, let's
now,
snap
now,
our
now.
fingers and
So we're
realize
bringing-
this is-
To be fair,
So we're bringing the Eternals into this from Marvel?
there. I gotta listen. Whoa. What they didn't write in is Robert Downey Jr. is going to save the day in this movie.
Oh, okay.
show up. What? Wrong set.
Is he Tommy Jarvis in this?
Probably.
Oh god.
Are we done with that one, or do we want to keep moving?
I don't know if there's anything more to say about that one. That movie writes itself.
All right, now we're on to the Reef and Morris draft. And all right, a psycho cult kidnaps a young girl to marry Freddy
Again.
so that he can be reborn and take over the reality.
Again.
The girl's sister teams up with a mysterious stranger from Freddy's past to resurrect Jason in hopes that he might stop Freddy and the cult.
Okay, two things I'd like to point out right off the bat. One, cults never work. Did no one see Halloween at all?
Well, you got to think probably by the time these were getting written, like that was probably the script that was
Yeah,
circulating.
but it never
So everyone's like,
works
oh,
out.
here's the future of horror films, cults.
But it never works out, first of all. Second of all, a movie that I would like to reference, and I feel like I'm going to piss a lot of people off. It's like the
I do it all the time.
Primo,
You get over it.
It's my turn. It's primo example, Alien versus Predator. You had to have a hero in one of them. Does no one understand these things?
Well, they
My
they
God.
did that. They, in my opinion, they made the Predator
They
the
made
hero.
Predator the hero.
So this is to Jason what that was to Predator.
Yeah, I know, but it's also kind of frustrating because they're supposed to be these villainous creatures. Why does one of them have to be a hero?
Well, I think they're kind of, and you could probably touch on this, Ace. They're kind of treating Jason, and also in the finished film that we got, they still do this. They treat him like the Frankenstein monster almost.
Basically.
He's like a misunderstood brute.
Yeah.
That in the end will do the right thing.
It seems like they basically didn't know what to do with two unstoppable killers.
Exactly.
So again, they had to force one into kind of the not hero role, but more sympathetic
I
role.
was about to say they make you feel sorry for Jason in this movie.
So, I mean, that's
All right.
that's 4 drafts. We got
Give us another fun
six
Yeah,
more
yeah.
6 more to go.
This is
Are,
great.
are we ready?
Keep it
Yeah.
going.
All right, this is the Goyer and Robinson draft.
As a David S. Goyer?
Uh-huh.
Oh, boy.
Gov's favorite.
Oh, boy.
All right, a psychic teenager helps the police capture a Freddy copycat killer. She and friends take the dream-enhancing drug and head to Crystal Lake. Freddy and Jason and the copycat all start to appear before them in a dream, and reality blend together.
Fucking Goyer.
So copycat Freddy,
What's wrong with the real Freddy?
hallucinating Jason, hallucinating Freddy.
So the
Something's
movies-
real, something's not.
Okay.
Don't do drugs, kids.
So the movie's just
Or
one,
do too many.
I was about to say, so it's just one big acid drop.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Because that's what we've wanted for the past 20 years, is for our favorite characters to not actually be there.
You're reading the audience perfectly. Mm-hmm. Let's just pretend that they're not real. All right. Now, again, this is where I'm going to start butchering some names, so please forgive me. The Abil and Burger draft.
A build a burger.
All right.
Put it on my tab.
A young girl barely escapes attack by a Freddy copycat killer. We've heard this before.
Oh my God. Wow.
She and friends then head to Crystal Lake, where their drinks are spiked with a dream-enhancing drug. Freddy and
Did
Jason
Harvey
and the
Weinstein
copycat
make these
killer all start to appear before them as dream and reality start to blend together.
Produced by Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby.
This stuff is great. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, this is the Verheiden draft. A young girl begins having Freddy nightmares. After surviving
That's a stretch. Let's see if that works for him.
After surviving an unexplainable massacre, she and friends head to Crystal Lake while taking a dream-enhancing drug. Freddy and Jason start to appear before them, and his dream and reality start to blend together.
Wow.
There's
Okay.
so many drugs in this. It feels like an autobiography about Leif Garrett.
So I'm going to take a stab, pun intended. I'm assuming that these are all drafts that were just working off the previous one.
Yeah.
Okay, because
Right.
One
there
trans
is
the other.
there are not that many people in this world that are this stupid that they would all have the same
Apparently.
horrible idea.
Yeah. Basically, what they were doing was, okay, everyone likes this draft, but no one likes it. Fix it.
So it's make it work.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Ready for the next?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Here we go. The again, me and names. Protosevich draft. A grad student writing about Freddy and Jason accidentally draws them into her, research into her own past reveals a disturbing connection to both killers, which uniquely enables her to defeat them.
How would that have
That's a pretty
worked?
vague
Would
story.
we literally have had her like writing it and then we would have had a flash and then back to her? How would that work?
We got to find the draft and read it, or we don't, and let's move on.
All right, so the final treatment before we get to the Shannon and Swift draft, which is the movie we got. This is the Bergentino draft. Or treatment, whatever they decide to call it. Freddy devises a scheme to slaughter thousands of souls in a dream concert, which will empower him to enter reality. Nightmare on Elm Street 5's Dream Child pulls Jason into the dream world to prevent Freddy, and from him acclimating his many souls.
Well, if we're connecting to a previous Nightmare on Elm Street film, I don't think I would connect it to 5. I get it because it was an open storyline, but yikes.
That could have been pretty cool. That could have been kind of cool. Having a callback to original characters that I will sit down.
I'll tell you this, what would work if you did something like that is one of the things, and I'm sure we'll get into it, that the actual movie that was produced suffered from is spending way too much time establishing these new characters. So if you were to recycle some other characters from the previous movie, you wouldn't have to spend as much time.
Yeah, then
because
you might get-
they're already established.
Yeah, then you might get a little bit more Freddy and Jason time.
So those are the drafts that went into production. The next draft is the Shannon Swift, and just because we did, I'll read the summary of that draft. Freddy resurrects Jason from hell and directs him to Elm Street, where he hopes that he'll drum up enough new fear to bring Freddy back from obscurity. Jason is unable to stop killing, however, and the Titans wind up battling over who gets to kill the Elm Street youth.
But wait! There's more!
So again, before we talk about the actual movie that we got, I think it might be fun. Do we want to know who wins in each draft?
Oh, there's results.
Yep.
Oh, could this writers be so cruel?
The Abernathy draft, Freddy wins.
Okay.
The Barger and Moore draft, Jason wins. The Briggs draft, neither win. The Rife and Voorhees draft, Jason wins. The Goyer and Robinson, neither wins.
Goyer wins.
Entire story is a dream.
Oh my god. Fucking Goyer.
The Abiel and Berger, Jason wins. The Verheiden draft, both win. The script had 2 endings. The Portorsovich draft, Freddy wins. The Bargentino draft, Jason wins. And in, obviously, the movie we get, it's a tie. So if you were, keeping tally marks at home, that's Jason 3, Freddy 3, Jason 5.
You know what? Since we went through that ordeal, and that's what it was, an ordeal.
I mean, I can keep going. I can tell you what, all the heroines' roles were in each movie, too.
No, thanks, though.
If you want to know that, folks, grab the book. It's actually a very fun read, interesting read.
Okay. When you think about it, the film we got really isn't that bad.
No, not in retrospect.
Oh my gosh, it makes me feel a little bit better about the film.
God.
Oh, all right. Before we get to that, I got to go back to the book for one more thing.
Okay.
Just to drive you nuts. The revised origins.
No.
Now, the Abernathy draft. Jason was drowned at Camp Crystal Lake by a fellow camper, Freddy Krueger.
Uh-huh.
The Bragar and Moore draft. Young Jason walks in on Freddy and Mrs. Voorhees having sex.
It happens.
Freddy chases the boy outside and drowns him.
That happens too, I guess.
That does it. Wow. Dark turn.
All right, and the Briggs draft. Jason was an Elm Street kid whom Freddy kills as revenge against his parents for being among the vigilante mob.
Got it.
Here we go. The Reef, Voorhees, Goyer, Robinson, the Abigail, the drafts that all are actually the same.
Same thing, yeah.
All right. Freddy was a camp counselor who molested young Jason, who drowns Jason upon telling the others about the abuse. Finally, in the Protosevich draft.
Is that Russian?
Yeah, I think so. Either way, I'm pronouncing it wrong, whether it's Russian, German, whatever. Jason drowns while his camp counselor sneaks away to have sex with Freddy, who helps hide their negligence in his death.
Wow. I didn't think Freddy had to work so hard.
So, digest that. We'll go back to the movie that we actually have.
Well, you know what? That's actually a good point. All these drafts are trying too hard.
They're way
overcomplicated.
too hard.
They're trying way too hard to interconnect
too hard.
Freddy with Jason. And you don't need that. It's all chuffa. It's all bullshit.
It's almost like they were looking for a conflict when you didn't need a conflict.
Exactly. They were... I mean, I could understand probably the excitement to crack the Freddy versus Jason code, because especially when so many people couldn't. And, well, I'm going to make this a connection, and I'm going to change this, I'm going to do that, and you're just overthinking it. Less is more.
So let's get into the movie we got. Finally! Quinn, what did you think of the final product of Freddy vs. Jason? What did you expect going in? How do you feel coming out?
Going into it, I think I was expecting, or at least hoping for, a little bit more focus again on Freddy and Jason. Just because that's what you're being sold on. That's what you're wanting. These two icons. That's what you're wanting to focus on. Again, I'm going to reference back. I think we focused too much on developing our young characters. I think we dwelled on that just a little bit too much. It's not a bad movie. I don't think it's an awful movie. I think it could have been a little bit better.
Gov?
I can say that I definitely got what I wanted out of Freddy, and seeing him return. At this point, he's been out of the cinema for quite some time, about 9 years, I want to say. So I do like the tone shifted more on him. It's very much, as you alluded to, a Nightmare on Elm Street movie versus a Jason movie. So I liked that. Jason, I do think, got a backseat in this. Weren't really sure what to do with him except just have him lumber around, kill a few people, and then fight Freddy. I do agree with Quinn. We do spend a lot of time with these teenage new characters to establish them. There's a lot of weird conspiracy plots with the town trying to cover up Freddy so that they would forget about him ultimately. And then there's a crop of kids in a mental institute because they wouldn't stop dreaming or they wouldn't stop talking about Freddy. And then the thing with the lead heroine's dad, and he's a part of the cover-up too. It's just a lot of stuff that you just don't think about when you think of a Freddy vs. Jason movie.
No, exactly.
Like, none of the stuff would come to mind.
That's what my
you know
point
what I mean?
was earlier. There was so much they were trying to do that I kind of think it just watered it down a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why I think it me personally, it fits more as a Nightmare on Elm Street movie than a Jason movie.
Yeah.
A Friday the 13th, because honestly, it's really what it establishes. I mean, each sequel kind of follows the same formula of A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Group of kids having the nightmares. The parents are trying to cover everything up. Now in this telling, we just happen to have Jason involved.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, with all these mashup films, and you can even date back to, if not one, the original one with Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, usually one character takes the driver's seat. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, that's a Wolfman movie with Frankenstein in it. It's a sequel to the Wolfman.
Oh, certainly.
Same thing more in modern times, and they called it that, Captain America Civil War. It's a Captain America movie with everyone else in it. You know what I mean? So definitely someone's going to take the driver's seat, and I was happy to see that it was Freddy this time around because, again, previously we've had the Jason movies, and they weren't great. So
what did you guys think of Jason in this movie? I mean, we get Robert Englund, and we can talk about him next, but there was controversy with the Jason character. Obviously, the hardcore, diehard fans were expecting Kane Hodder.
No love for Kane.
We were, everybody was looking forward to that big Kane Hodder, Robert Englund showdown. We didn't get it.
No. Not in this form, at least. They've done movies together.
But, in their iconic roles of Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees. So what was our overall opinion on Jason in this movie?
I kind of feel like it was a little, I don't want to say like out of line, but almost like disrespectful not to have him come back. I feel like fans, as you said, were expecting it. So it not only was kind of insulting to him, but also to fans.
It's no movies without its controversy, and this was the one for this one. And it all breaks down to what do you believe, because there's been a lot of finger pointing. Who did it? Who fired Kane? Or who chose not to bring him back? However you want to describe it. You got the director, Ronnie Yu, saying that it was New Line's call. And then you got New Line, the producers, Jeff Katz, saying that it was Ronnie Yu's call. And also I believe it was Kane Hodder who believes that Ronnie Yu made the call. According to Yu, he said that he didn't care either way. He went to them. He goes, I don't care who's Jason. If you want to bring Kane, great. If you want to cast someone else, fine. What I think actually happened was New Line was looking for a tax break by hiring a citizen of Canada because they shot in Toronto. And Ken Kurtzinger is a citizen. And he was guy, big stunt man, and had experience doubling in Jason. He doubled Kane in Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. So it's a win-win for New Line. Plus, on the regards of the size, unfortunately, Kane Hodder isn't that much taller than Robert Englund. And I think they really wanted a distinct size difference between the two of them. So they went with a bigger, broader Jason. Business-wise, it makes sense, but I do agree with Quinn. It is disrespectful to an icon.
Poor Kane con queso.
I agree that it's definitely disrespectful and definitely not what the fans wanted. But like we say all the time, it's the movie business.
Yeah.
It's not the movie fans.
Exactly.
It was going to be a success no matter what.
Yeah. And I don't think he did a bad job.
Kurtzinger, no.
Kurtzinger is
no.
And I mean, if we're getting really honest, as much love and respect I have for Kane Hodder, he's not my favorite Jason.
Really?
I like Ted White from 4.
Part 4. So that's solid. He was an intense one.
He was intense. I didn't really like the pseudo Michael Myers Jason where it's just slow stalking. But Kane Hodder is an icon. He is a legend, and he made that role his own. And who am I to say that he didn't deserve that part in Freddy vs. Jason?
Especially with how hard he lobbied for it.
Absolutely,
such a big supporter.
And Robert Englund lobbied for him as well.
Yeah. No, everyone wanted it to be Robert versus Kane. It's just that's the movie business. That's what happens sometimes, and nobody faults Ken Kurtzinger at all.
And they shouldn't.
He came.
He's the guy who took a job.
He was doing a job. And he turned in a solid performance. He was fine.
Right. Clearly now, I know a couple of years ago, after Halloween 2018 came in, there were rumors starting around that maybe Robert Englund would step back in with with Nancy Heather Langenkamp for a possible sequel to A Nightmare on Elm Street, but that's kind of, washed away. It's kind of died down.
Yeah.
So let's just assume that this is it for a swan song, for a final Freddy performance. What do we think of Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger in this movie?
Well, it's exactly that. It's a swan song. I mean, I have to admit, as much as I would love to see Robert put the glove on one more time, because I do think he is getting up there in age. He's,
73, 72
exactly. Now. But I think he does, if he really wanted it, I do think he has one more in him. I think he does have a farewell performance in him if he chooses to. If he doesn't, what a way to go out. I got everything I wanted out of Freddy Krueger in this movie. Now, it doesn't mean that movie overall is brilliant, but in terms of what I wanted Freddy to be, he knocked it out of the park. And for him to hang his hat with this performance, I'm totally cool with.
I agree.
And then technically you could always watch the Goldberg's Halloween episode if you really want to see one more time.
I agree. For a final performance, I don't think he could have done Freddy any more perfect.
I mean, this movie, opinions aside or, problems aside, it's a hard bar to beat. I mean, the ultimate clash, the ultimate mashup that people have been waiting 4 years for. So that's a good one to hang your hat on.
Absolutely. Quinn?
Robert Englund, in my opinion, is a genius. No matter what, he always nails it. You put something in front of him and he executes it beautifully. He is very much a master of his craft. So I do agree with you guys. If this is his last one, this is great. This is a great final performance. I would absolutely love to see him do one more at least, but I don't know if this is all we get. I think I'd be pretty happy with what we got.
I will say you this: if he comes back, as you alluded to, there was some rumors with like Heather Langenkamp as Nancy back. If they come back and they do one of those stupid things of this is the real sequel, and they take out all the 2 through New Nightmare, and this movie would be included into that, I would be pissed. Because I do like the Nightmare franchise. I don't think you should fuck with it.
Right.
You should let it be canon. It's there for a reason. Don't pull a Halloween. I have that problem with Halloween too, but I would have a real problem if they did that with this one. And they're doing it with Texas now, apparently.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was going to lead the conversation into that. Following this movie, we got 2 remakes.
Yeah.
Which failed miserably. Where do these franchises go now? Obviously, we could spend an entire show talking about the Friday the 13th lawsuit.
Well, they both have their legality problems. Because you got the endless lawsuits with who has the rights to Jason currently. And then you got the rights to Nightmare on Elm Street reverted back to Wes Craven's estate. And apparently they're taking a quality stance with it. They're not just going to greenlight anything with Freddy Krueger anymore.
Okay, I mean, but that's fair enough. My question is where does it go? Obviously they're not going to continue the storyline that the terrible remakes. So what do you do with a new Freddy or Jason? Do you go back to canon, or do you just try to do something different?
Well, what do you mean by different?
Well, I don't know, because that's all I heard from criticism from Halloween. We wanted something different. We wanted something different. We needed something different. This movie sucks because it was we wanted something different. What do we do with, if we're not following the reboot line and we don't necessarily want to go back to the canon, what do we do with these 2 characters?
I don't know. I say leave well enough alone. If you're going to do something different. Leave the originals alone. Don't mess with them. I agree with Gov. I don't think it should be this is our true sequel. Ignore all the others. Let's pretend like those didn't exist. Do something different. Do something original. Quit trying to mess with something that worked, because every time, as history tells us, they try to bank off of that success of a formula that worked. It crashes and burns.
It's a hard thing to try to juggle, because you can screw it up if you go too far either way. You can make a carbon copy, kind of like what a Halloween 18 gets accused of. It's just the same movie. It's the first movie again, just in a modern setting. If you don't want to talk about horror, let's talk about Star Wars Force Awakens. You know what I mean? I don't think it's necessarily bad to have that one movie to reintroduce the franchise, and I call it a back to form movie. It gives you something that you remember, but then expands on it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's too close of a remake or a retread. But if you go too different with it, then you're just going to alienate the core audience. Ghostbusters 2016. You know what I mean? It's such a hard act to pull off when you're trying to reintroduce something the right way.
But like you always say when we talk about Halloween 2018, these movies got 10, 12 movies of legacy. You know, how do you continue a story without stepping on those toes a little bit?
I don't think it requires you to erase canon. I mean, you can start fresh. You can have, I hate this term, you can have your reboot, but you don't have to erase what came before it. It's like a James Bond film. Just step to the side, tell a new story. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You don't have to say, you don't have to negate anything that came before it. That's, one, disrespectful to the fans who like it and the amount of work that people put into them, just to say, like, your movie doesn't count anymore.
Okay, but if you're talking about like a James Bond idea, that's like a title character, a very simple like one-line idea, and then they like do their own thing with it.
What's wrong with that?
No, that's what I'm saying. That if you want to do it, that's the way that you do it. The problem is most people don't know how to do it.
Clearly.
At all. That's the problem. Not a lot of people know how to do the balancing act. And halfway through the process, they realize they're leaning to one side or the other, and then they've painted themselves in a corner, and they don't know how to get out.
For the past 50 years, James Bond has been rebooted, retold, modernized, whatever you want to call it. I've never seen them once attempt to remake Dr. No or Goldfinger.
No, but that's the
you know
thing.
What I mean?
They left it alone.
But the thing is, there's no confidence in the material anymore. Just like with these horror films, they don't believe that you can step to the side and start anew without. I've talked about it on the show numerous of times. It's the Google complex. They want you to type in the movie title into Google, and they want the current thing to pop up.
Okay, so then basically all I'm hearing is that it's a lack of originality and
overall creativity.
I was about to say
really
creativity.
Is.
So it's a lack of creativity.
I know that these movies are cash cows, including Freddy and Jason, both of them still. I mean, the Friday the 13th, the Ultimate box set just got released, and everyone's buying it. So there is a want for these characters, but if you just don't have an idea or know what to do with them, then don't do it.
Or don't remake it because you're going to piss off loyal fans.
You got the fan movie with Freddy vs. Jason, what we're talking about right now. Yes, not all the fans loved it, but it was the fan letter movie. It was the here you go, the thing you've always wanted to see. And then they try to move on and do cash grab remakes, but we're not even talking about those anymore. I mean, those have totally been forgotten to time, except for how bad they were.
Now we know!
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
You know, one of the biggest criticisms of the movie is making Jason afraid of water.
Yeah.
How do we feel about this?
Okay, so we want to go through the stupid things in this movie?
Yeah.
All right.
I went through the stupid drafts. Why don't you tell me one of the stupid things?
The stupid things in this movie. Okay, numero uno is Jason's afraid of water. What? Come on, everybody knows that. After 10 movies at this point, Jason is certainly not afraid of water. I understand what the appeal of that is. The whole opposites: fire, water.
Opposite
Freddy,
fire,
Jason,
but
and stuff like
they had
that.
to give some sort of edge to Freddy.
They wanted
with him.
Freddy to get into his head, and they figured that was the best way to do it. It has been noted that the writers did not come up with that. That was something that a producer or somebody added in just to make it make more sense. Their approach to it was more of Freddy regresses Jason into a child when he was afraid of drowning. At that moment, he's afraid of imminent death. He's drowning and stuff like that. That's where they were going for, not the whole hit a pipe and won't cross the streaming water to get to Freddy because he's afraid of it. I mean, if he was afraid of water, fucking Jason Takes Manhattan will never have happened. Because the movie, he walks at the bottom of the lake to get to New York. You figure it out.
Or Vancouver.
Or
depending
Vancouver,
on which side
exactly.
You're on. Quinn, how you feel about Jason being afraid of water?
I get that what they were trying to do. I understand it. I think they should have come up with a better way because that just made them look like morons.
It is one of those letting Vicky Vale into the Batcave scenarios, like just bad decision making all around.
It just
to kind of make it go faster.
Yeah, I was about to say it just kind of felt like okay, here's a real quick thing. Let's just
we need to wrap this up here.
Let's move type idea.
Is there anything else?
There's a ton of stupid things in this movie.
Let's go.
Hey, let's talk about Kelly Rowland calling Freddy a what?
Well, definitely politically incorrect today.
Can't do that anymore.
It's a product of its time.
Yeah.
Just like most of these movies are.
And I'm quoting people. I don't use that word at all. That is a quote.
Let's talk about Freddy's fucking face changing.
Oh,
they did that stupid.
She doesn't like Demon Freddy.
Demonic form.
Why not?
Leave him alone. He's already an icon. Do we really have to change it? Even if it's only for that half a second?
I was about to say, it's something they didn't really elaborate on.
Yeah, but they didn't even need it.
It's not like they said that this is the new Freddy. It was just a creepy effect for one quick scene.
It was Freddy when he's super pissed.
Yeah, I get that. That's the Incredible Hulk.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so he Bruce Bannered it. Wow, original, guys.
How about the blood splatter? Like the hose blood splatter in this movie.
Yeah, what is with that?
It's, I think the approach was to go comic book with it.
I gave you a paper cut. You nicked an artery.
But that's what I was just about to say. There's a lot of arteries being severed in this movie.
And they're not even near a main artery. You realize that?
I mean, I guess killers of 30 plus years would know where all the major arteries are at this point.
Well, I mean,
seems awful convenient.
Look, you got these two titans of terror beating the shit out of each other. You can't have a bloody lip. I think it was just a theatrical move just to make it more exciting and more visually fun to watch.
Has anyone seen Vampires Suck?
No.
Okay, she gets a paper cut on her finger and they have blood spewing all over the place. It's a parody film. But that's all I could think of when I watched this movie.
I have seen Dracula Dead and loving it.
Yes!
And I can see
yes, that's exactly it.
I can see where,
Or Addams Family when they're doing the school play.
Yeah, doing bloodshed. Yeah. I can see where the cheesiness criticism gets labeled with this movie. It is. It gets really cheesy, really corny, especially with the outlandish gore in it.
But at the same time, to me, when it comes to horror movies in general, sometimes you just gotta have fun. And I think the blood is just having fun. Do we have to take everything so literal and so serious, or can we just have fun with it? And the blood and the violence, in the final fight, I think it was just a fun. Fun to,
Are you trying to say that it was fun?
It was a lot of fun.
Okay.
It was a fun
You
movie.
didn't elaborate on that.
Well, I don't know if this movie's meant for me. I can see. I think that was the only direction we could go with this, especially if the entire climax is dedicated to this balls to the wall, just
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think I agree with it, but it does look weird, especially when you got Jason's fingers being cut off and you got his eyes being gouged out, which, by the way, his eyes are fine in the next shot.
Suspend.
I have to spend a lot of disbelief with this, because you think a machete would take some things off every now and then, but it doesn't really. It just kind of makes more arteries splatter.
I will say, I will give it this. Upon watching again your final battle, one thing I did like about it is when watching it, this is just my interpretation of it. Jason is fighting out of anger and frustration, and Freddy is just there to beat the piss out of him, just pure evil.
That is a good point.
I mean, seriously, look at it. Even the fighting style, Freddy is just slashing and stabbing, doing anything he can just to get Jason.
Do you think he just wants the trophy of he killed Jason?
I think in the end he does, because I think he got pissed off because he wasn't getting his kills. Jason's going overboard, and he's like, well, great, now I have to take care of this. But while I'm there, because why else would he
take the machete?
It seems very personal.
I'm going to kill you with your own weapon. What now? You destroyed what I wanted. Now I'm going to destroy you.
Freddy takes it very personal.
He
at the
really
end.
does.
Even because Jason goes to Elm Street and kills a bunch of people, and then didn't stop because Freddy didn't tell him to stop. So Jason's really not at fault here.
Let me ask you guys. I mean, we've already established that the three of us are more drawn to Freddy than Jason.
3 Fred heads.
But I gotta ask, in spirit of the show, who won at the end of this movie?
It's weird. Part of me feels like nobody really won. The other part of me feels like, I guess maybe Jason. It leans towards Jason just a little bit more, just because he's
decapitated Freddy. Spoiler alert. Freddy can't really do anything now.
Or is it Jason's dream? Is that why? And that's why Freddy's winking at you at the end.
I always thought Freddy was just winking because that's just Freddy's personality, almost like taunting the audience.
That's always how I took it.
I looked at it as it's a dream.
But whose dream?
Jason's.
Ah.
I look at it as you're both right. I think that's one of the great things that this ending does, which, by the way, is a reshot ending. The original ending to the movie was the Will and Laurie character finally consummate their love, and Jason Ritter, who plays Will, turns into Freddy, either implying that he is the next breed of Freddy Krueger or Freddy Krueger has possessed him. Terrible ending. It scored horribly in the pre-screening, so they reshot the dreamlike ending. As far as who wins, it's based on the viewer. I truly believe if you're a fan of Jason, Jason won. If you're a fan of Freddy, Freddy won. If you want to get technical, Monica Kino wins. She's the, quote, heroine that they've been trying to build up, whether with all these drafts, that there has to be a third good guy character. That's her. If you want to nitpick, like the Gov likes to do, in the straight-up battle of Freddy versus Jason, in terms of the actual battle itself, I think Freddy wins because Jason dies because of what Freddy does to him. He stabs Freddy through the chest with his own glove, and then he dies and falls and sinks into the lake. Freddy dies because Monica Kina decapitates him. So, between the two, Jason died because of Freddy, Freddy died because of Monica Kina. But again, that's being a nitpicker.
But here was the thing. He was already on his way out before she decapitated him.
How do we know that? He was still kicking?
He was gargling blood. What are you talking about?
He was still kicking. He was alive enough to look up at her so she can say the line.
That's all that was. It was just so we could get another line out of it. So basically all you're saying is Freddy won simply because he got the stab first.
Well, I'm sorry that we didn't get to wait long enough to see him die by Jason, the fact is he didn't. He died when he got decapitated.
So then at the end, even like Jason coming out of the water with Freddy's head.
I believe it's a dream. I'm with Ace on that.
You believe it's a dream?
If you're talking about this final shot versus the actual ending or the final battle, this seems like it's a dream. It does.
So then I guess Freddy would win in the end.
It depends. Was the whole thing a dream? It's my point is no one wins or they both win. Whoever you wanted to win can win. It's interpretive. True. It was done well on the writer's part.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
There's a rumor that floats around online that at one point it was even pitched that Jason and Freddy would fight into hell and they'd be greeted there by Pinhead, which would set up the sequel.
That'd be interesting.
That would be cool.
I could see that happening. He could be like the king and they're the Roman gladiators of hell.
Yeah.
It'd be really cool.
So, guys, 16 years after, does this movie still hold up?
Oh, God.
I mean, clearly, Kelly Rowland's language doesn't hold up.
Right. There's a few things in this that don't hold up in terms of PC. I'll give you that. But that aside, I still enjoy it. I mean, it dates me because I went to the theater to see this movie, but I enjoyed it pretty much now as I did then. I think it also is becoming a Halloween classic in its own right. Mm-hmm. Sure. More and more people are talking about it or rewatching it over the years, so I think it does have a shelf life and still has a strong fan support.
You saw it in theaters when you were a kid?
Yeah, I did.
I like hearing elderly people tell their stories.
Uh-huh.
So I think it holds up pretty well. I mean, obviously, special effects aren't what they are today, but it's still enjoyable. It's not obnoxiously corny or dated or anything like that. I think it holds up on its own perfectly well.
And I agree. It's still a very enjoyable film to watch. You don't get bored of it. You don't really get sick of it. It's one of those unique movies that still hold up when you watch it. True to their predecessors.
Welcome to my world, bitch.
So the Internet Movie Database gives Freddy vs. Jason a 5.7 out of 10. A little over half.
Yeah.
Rotten Tomato gave it a 41%. Letterboxd gave it a 2.6 out of 5.
Wow.
Ow.
Yeah.
And all the crazies out there in Google land, 91% of the people liked this movie.
There we are.
That's what we're talking about.
So it is a fans movie.
It is
not a critics movie. It's not anything more. This is for the fans, by the fans, all about the fans.
Mm-hmm.
So Quinn, Freddy vs. Jason, 1 to 5.
I'd give it a 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5.
Yes.
It's an amateur number.
Yeah.
Gov?
I'll give it the one more. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. It's not an auteur movie. It's not for critics. It's not for people who want to be challenged when they go to the cinema. It's exactly what you said. It's a fan-inspired gift for the fans, and the movie can be slow and cheesy at times, but overall it does its job. I enjoy it. 4. Why not?
Quinn, my apologies. Why is this deserving of a 3?
You mean my amateur number?
Yeah, your amateur number.
Oh, my amateur number.
It is an amateur number because you didn't give it a point.
Fine. Let me retract my number. It's a 3.5.
There we go. There we go. Now we're getting there.
In the middle. Just because I do think there are, as stated earlier, some problems with the movie, fluidity and plot issues. Mm-hmm. So I deduct some points for that. Also, I feel like it could have been a little bit more than what we got. that's the only reason why I deduct a little bit.
Okay. I am going to actually give this a 4.2.
Oh, a 2.
I didn't know we could do a 0.2.
Yeah.
That's different. Why?
Because you know what? In a time of Saw and torture porn and Hostel,
all the great movies we talked about last week,
to get a movie like this, it was a treat. And it's something I watched it in the theater. It's something I'll never forget. And yes, it's a very fun.
I was gonna say, would you
movie.
call it fun? Would you call
it's
it
a very fun
so
movie,
glad.
and to me, it still holds up. So yeah, I give it a 4.2.
Well, 3 solid reviews on this movie. Was it worth the hype? The 20-year odyssey that brought Freddy to Jason finally to screens? I don't know. But in this movie that involves 2 icons in a match to the death, it proved one thing for sure, and that's true legends live forever.
And that's it for us today, you psychos. So next week, finally, Halloween is upon us.
Our time of year.
It really is our Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, we're going to hit you with something a little different. This is going to be the Scarifyer Halloween special. We're going to hit you, first of all, with a film review of the cult classic Trick or Treat.
Growing in status every year.
And then we're going to hit you with a surprise episode, which, well, you're just going to have to tune in and find out.
I can't tell you now.
So as always, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, get a shout out on the show.
As you can see, it happens.
And we will see you next time right here on Scarifyer.
Scarifyer.